welcome to the National Newspaper Publishers Association's Let It Be Known, and my microphone is not working. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Got some technical. All right, here we go. Here we go. Boy, it's a disaster already on Tuesday, in which Power 96 is already looking forward to Friday. He says it's 3 days until Friday. I think we all looking forward to Friday already. But anyway, this morning, Donald Trump heads to trial. He headed to trial. Yesterday was the first day, historic day for a former president to stand trial in a criminal matter. He asked that the judge allow him to participate in sidebars. When the say, can I approach the bench and things of that nature, that would put him right next to jurors. So we'll see how the judge rules on that. Also, that $175 million surety bond that his camp found for him to appeal the $457 million judgment in his business fraud case. Well, it's on thin ice and it might cost him big time. We'll talk about that also. And where is Uncle Thomas? Yesterday, he missed oral arguments in the Supreme Court, and that is extremely rare. The last time a Supreme Court judge missed oral arguments, he was sick. So he is wishing Uncle Clarence Thomas a very painful and long recovery. A Memphis pastor has drafted a petition to ban the study of reparations. We're going to talk about that this morning as well. Isn't that something? They're going all out. These MAGA folks, and he's a MAGA guy, no question about it. They're going all out to show you who they are and tell you who they are. They're showing and telling, and yet you still have folks like that misguided uh, black woman down wherever they were, that Chick-fil-A, setting that stuff up for Trump. It's unbelievable. First and foremost, though, this morning, um, the WNBA draft took place yesterday, last night, in the Big Apple. And Angel Reese is going to the Windy City. She's joining former South Carolina Senator Camila Cardoso with the Chicago Sky after they both were drafted by the team in the first round. The pair had plenty of heated battles in the SEC, including in this year's conference championship game. And now they will be teammates for at least the next 4 years um, in the WNBA with the Chicago Sky. So good for them too. It's going to be quite a pairing. And Angel Reese's she look, the young lady is she is maximizing her fortune, her good fortune, and great for her, despite everything. She has she is done some amazing things, and now she will be flying her trade with the Chicago Sky, and I'm sure people will be tuned in big time. Two big time players that the Chicago Sky drafted, were able to draft, uh, turning that franchise around, and she wearing her Met Gala outfit or something to for the draft. I'm sure she's probably going to be even uh, much more stylish, I guess, for the WNBA. I mean, for the Met Gala. Boy, I'm all over the place this morning. Couldn't get the microphone working and all the other stuff. Greer didn't tell me the microphone wasn't working. Um, wow. So good for Angel Reese. Other thing this morning I wanted to mention, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago when Netflix announced the reboot, quote unquote reboot of Good Times, and it's just an awful thing that so awful that Monique Judge of the Griot, she expressed in her column what many have been feeling or thinking about this, but pretty glad how she expressed in her column. Monique goes on to say that Netflix's Good Times is every bit as offensive as the 2-minute trailer promised it would be, and anyone who chastised people for reacting negatively to the trailer on social media was doing that a quote, a hit dog will holler thing because the show is awful. She says, I'm going to be honest and say that I was immediately turned off by the trailer. I couldn't understand why anyone would want to reboot Good Times, and I couldn't understand why a reboot would include the stereotypes and caricatures that I saw in the trailer. She says, I was determined to give it a try, however, because I wanted to be fair in my critique. All 10 episodes of the series were released on Friday. And she says the BS starts immediately in the first episode when Reggie, who's voiced by JB Smoove, is in the shower singing part of the original theme song. He is accompanied by a roach that is standing on his window sill as he bathes. She says it only gets worse from there. The fourth generation of the Evans family, Reggie is the grandson of James Evans Sr. They live in the same apartment, 17C, that the original Evans family lived in. And she says it seems that their circumstances still haven't changed. They are poor in the projects and struggling just to make it on a daily basis. Beverly, who's voiced by Yvette Nicole Brown, walks into the living room where her son JJ Jr., who's played by or voiced by Jay Farrow, sleeps on the pull-out sofa, seemingly pleasuring himself. And to which she says, "Not again. I just changed the sheets." It's just then she looks up, and wails at a black Jesus mural that he painted on the wall. It's like they are just making a mockery out of the original. And then Monique Judge goes on to say that in this case, she's trying to win the Bulldog beautification contest, much like Florida did in the original series. And as she explains this to her two oldest children, she hands a cracker to her daughter and tells her just to rub some crumbs around your mouth. So when the judges come to our apartment, they'll think I fed you. The prize for winning the contest is a month of free rent and 2 weeks without roaches. It is downright awful. And Monique concludes it by saying, I suspect it's not meant to be black people funny. It's more like white people funny. Well, white people will think this stuff about black people is funny. But that might just be me, she says. It's to go along with this, and there are some big names who put their attach their names to this, including Steph Curry. I mean, Seth MacFarlane, you can understand. There's no he has no sense of connection to the black community. No sense of connection to uh the anything sacred from the black community. And it's a sitcom. Good Times was a sitcom, but it's still one of those sacred things. I mean, it's tantamount to taking like a different world and making them all like high school dropouts and living in the ghetto somewhere. It's just awful. It is. It's inexcusable, inexcusable to have destroyed. I mean, absolutely destroyed the um the whole sense of what Good Times was really about, as the song says, scratching and surviving, which people could relate to. But I think I side 100% with Monique Judge and her assessment when she says, "I suspect it's not meant to be black people funny. It's more of what somebody else might think black people might think is funny." David says, "I saw it and I was disappointed. Disappointment, and I refused to watch. I seen the trailers, like Monique Judge, and then she went on and gave it a full try, and I will not. And I wouldn't recommend anybody. If you want to know what Good Times is all about, check out the reruns from the 1970s original series. This ain't it." Well, the historic criminal trial against the twice impeached and four times indicted former President Trump is underway in New York. The judge said this he determined what evidence will be allowed and what will not. He was also fined candy money for violating the gag order, $3,000, I think. This is the hush money trial in which he silenced or bought the silence of his alleged mistresses before the 2016 election. What the judge did decide was the Access Hollywood tape would not be in as evidence, but they can bring up, of course, the alleged multiple affairs that Trump has had on Melania, and also a series of National Enquirer stories attacking Trump's opponents will be brought into evidence. And what's interesting about that, there was a very interesting article in the New York Times. It was written by a Hollywood Reporter, um, writer, journalist, last week, um, Lachlan Cartwright, who talked about his time at the National Enquirer and how he became a part of these catch and kill stories in which the National Enquirer would hear about someone about to talk to the media about damaging stuff about Donald Trump. And because Trump was in bed, allegedly in bed with the National Enquirer and its front man, David Pecker, they would buy the testimony. There's in one such case, uh, one of the doormen at Trump's Trump Tower, one of his Trump Tower residencies. Um, they had heard about him having knowledge of Trump fathering a love child, having an affair with someone in the building, and the woman being pregnant. And so the National Enquirer signed him to a lucrative six-figure uh, exclusive deal, but they never ran a story They never really sat with him. They just got information from him and bought his silence. And the story was catch and kill. And then there was the um, Karen McDougal situation, which the jury's going to hear that Trump continued his affair with her while Melania was pregnant and after she gave birth. McDougal was a model and an actress who said she had this affair with Trump in 2006 and was paid $150,000 to keep quiet about it by the National Enquirer. And as much as there's denials of this stuff, there's a paper trail, and that's where Michael Cohen comes in, the former Trump attorney who um, will be testifying against Trump. And I don't know much about how they were able to get around the attorney-client privilege, even though he's not Trump's lawyer anymore. Things that happened during his time with Trump, supposed to be privileged, but I imagine that because there is criminal act involved, that privilege goes out the window. But the judge said he believes that the Access Hollywood video, in which we all know Trump brags about groping women, should not be shown to jurors because it's, quote, so prejudicial. He also denied the prosecutor's request to bring into evidence the allegations of sexual assault against Trump that came out after the Access Hollywood tape. He said he will not allow Trump to be prejudiced by a, quote, rumor. Then he also said that he doesn't think that E. Jean Carroll's deposition should be brought in because it would be building in a trial into a trial. Remember, E. Jean Carroll, twice a civil jury um, determined that Trump sexually assaulted her and awarded her about $90 million. So 12 New Yorkers and 6 alternates will eventually be seated in this case. And some of the jury questionnaires was asking as to whether or not they've ever attended a rally for Trump, whether they have had any affiliation with the Proud Boys or QAnon. So it's going to be interesting to see what type of jury is seated ultimately, who is on that jury, and all the shenanigans that are going to happen. But in the meantime, the Supreme Court today is taking up a matter that could directly affect and even um, effectively derail this and other Trump prosecutions, and perhaps not entirely derail it, but really cripple some of these prosecutions because they're going to determine whether the Department of Justice fairly used obstruction charges, and that will affect at least 150 of those convicted in the January 6th incident, and it's going to affect some of the charges against Trump. A lot of the charges against Trump, because they all come, many of them, I should say, not all, many come back to obstruction. So it's going to be interesting, and which all, as we'll get into a little bit, um, makes interesting yesterday's absence by Clarence Thomas. Some say, was he huddling with Trump? Who knows? But as far as Donald Trump's bond is concerned, on that $454 million civil fraud judgment that was handed down against him, he has until Monday to show the financial bona fides of the $175 million bond that he got to cover the judgment while he appeals. The New York Attorney General's office, which won the judgment, called the bond into question earlier this month. Knight Specialty Insurance, the little known insurer that issued Trump the bond, isn't on a list of federally approved sureties. And you supposed to be on this list because it shows that you've been approved to post bond by the federal government. The Attorney General's office has demanded that Trump's lawyers or the company proved their qualifications, including they want details on how it is financially solvent and specify what Trump assets are backing the bond. Now, the judge, Arthur N. Gorin, has scheduled a hearing on the matter for Monday. And some lawyers who handle similar cases said that the judge could find that the bond, which isn't licensed in the state of New York, doesn't comply with the law. And here's here's what lawyer Adam Pollock said. He said um, the idea that Trump's engaging in financial chicanery, or whatever you want to say, after being found liable for financial chicanery, is something that the judge will have little patience for. Now, Adam Pollock once worked in the AG's office, and in Letitia James's filing, she says that Knight isn't registered at all to issue appeal bonds. They hadn't obtained a certificate of qualification from the state's Department of Financial Services. It's a document that would indicate that the company was financially solvent and is qualified to issue the bond. Power 96 says Uncle Clarence was with Melania Trump in that GOP funded RV. They might be in Mexico. But there are other red flags with the bond. And I think Austin chimed in about the bond. What are you talking about, Austin? Oh my gosh. He says Trump's $175 million bond is on thin ice, like my bond for 1 million would be on thin ice. Oh boy. Austin, let's hope you don't have to put up a bond at all. And so it leads us back to, as Power 96 alluded to, Clarence Thomas, who was absent from court and he wasn't even participating remotely in arguments, which was an option. Chief Justice John Roberts had announced that Clarence Thomas's absence, um, saying that his colleague would still participate in some of the cases on that day. But even after that, Uncle Clarence was a no-show. And the court sometimes, but not always, says when a justice is out, they tell you when a justice is out sick. We know that he was hospitalized just 2 years ago with an infection causing him to miss several court sessions. And he took part in the cases then too. Of course, Clarence Thomas is the currently he's the longest serving justice. He joined the court in 1991, and we all remember those hearings. We do remember them well. Um, this reparations thing is really um, it's really something else. The extent that folks are going to deny even boy, Austin says that Clarence Thomas is at his annual slave training spring camp. Wow. And we know Anita Hill told the truth. There's no question. But this reparations thing is, um, look, it's not by now, even the most optimistic know that it's just not going to happen, right? But a bill uh, could block local governments in Tennessee, for example, from studying and funding reparations for descendants of enslaved people. This Reverend Earl Fisher, who's described as a community activist, says it's frustrating to see this come up. He's collected more than 1,800 signatures on a petition opposing the bill. It's contrary to what the government is supposed to do when you talk about helping citizens figure out what is true, then remedying it and redressing any of the social and political ills. Um, the MAGA crew there in Tennessee um, is trying to outlaw even putting together a study. Remember, it's been years now. Sheila Jackson Lee, and long before her, um, this idea of a federal study on reparation. A study. So in Tennessee, they don't they want to set the bar at a different level now. They don't even want it to come up that we should study it. And there's been studies everywhere about reparations. Now, this bill in Tennessee would prohibit it coming up. It would effectively outlaw any lawmaker from bringing it up, to bringing up a study. It's sponsored by John Reagan of Nashville and Senator Brent Taylor of Memphis. And as Fisher says, as long as there's a supermajority in the state house, then you can never guarantee that the will of the majority of the people will be enacted. But it is clear people all across the state are concerned about what's happening. And they are from the Los Angeles and San Francisco and other places that have many others that have studied it or had commissions on reparations. It's just flown out the window now. You don't hear nothing else about it. You're supposed to get all of this reparations. Well, it goes back to slave owners being the only ones being repaired, right? But let's be real here. Central to the idea of the American dream lies an assumption that we all have an equal opportunity to generate the kind of wealth that brings meaning to the words life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That's what the Declaration of Independence said, right? And then this idea of the American dream, which is supposed to tell you that with so-called hard work, a person can own a home, can start a business, and grow a nest egg for generations to draw upon. Of course, that belief has been defied repeatedly by the US government's own decrees that deny wealth building opportunities for Black Americans. Just think about it. The average white family today has about 10 times the amount of wealth as the average Black family. White college graduates have over 7 times more wealth than Black college graduates. The American dream is inequitable. It has an inequitably or an inequitable reality that demands the same US government that denied wealth to Blacks restore that deferred wealth through reparations to their descendants in the form of individual cash payments in the amount that will close the racial wealth gap. Reparations should come in the form of wealth building, opportunities that address racial disparities in education, housing, and business ownerships. But it's not. Think about this. In 1860, over $3 billion was the value assigned to the physical bodies of enslaved Black Americans to be used as free labor and production. Over $3 billion. This was more money than was invested in factories and railroads combined. In 1861, the value placed on cotton produced by enslaved Blacks was $250 million in 1861. Slavery enriched white slave owners and their descendants, and it fueled the country's economy. while suppressing wealth building for the enslaved, of course. The U.S. has yet to compensate descendants of enslaved Black Americans for their labor, nor has the federal government atoned for the lost equity from anti Black housing, transportation, and business policy. Slavery, Jim Crow, segregation, anti Black practices like redlining and other discriminatory public policies in criminal justice and education have robbed, stolen Black Americans of the opportunity to build wealth, the same opportunity afforded to our white peers. So called bootstrapping isn't going to erase racial wealth divides, no matter what Candace Owens and people like her say. As one economist, a guy named William Darity, and another economist, Derek Hamilton, they put together this report just what 5, 6 years ago called "What We Get Wrong About Closing the Wealth Gap." In that report, they say blacks cannot close the racial wealth gap by changing their individual behavior. For example, by assuming more personal responsibility, as people say, or acquiring the portfolio management insights associated with financial literacy. In fact, white high school dropouts have more wealth than black college graduates. The racial wealth gap did not result from a lack of labor. Rather, it came from a lack of financial capital. Not only do racial wealth disparities reveal fallacies in the American dream, the financial and social consequences are significant and wide ranging. Wealth is positively correlated with better health, educational, and economic outcomes. Assets from homes, stocks, bonds, and retirement savings provide what we know a financial safety net for the inevitable shocks to the economy and personal finances that happen throughout a person's lifespan. Reparations, which is a system of redress for egregious injustices, are not foreign to this country. Native Americans have received land and billions of dollars for various benefits and programs for being forcibly exiled from their native lands. For Japanese Americans, $1.5 billion was paid to those who were interned during World War II. And additionally, of course, the United States, through the Marshall Plan, was instrumental in helping the Jewish community receive reparations for the Holocaust. Holocaust. And the United States even made a number of investments to repair Jewish people. And you think back, 1952, West Germany agreed to pay $3.5 billion to Holocaust survivors. And that was pushed by the United States. Black Americans are the only group that has not received reparations for state sanctioned racial discrimination, while slavery afforded some white families the ability to accrue tremendous wealth. And we should note, I think we must note, that American slavery was particularly brutal. About 15%, listen to this, about 15% of those enslaved shipped from Western Africa died during the transport while being transported. 15%. The enslaved were regularly beaten and lynched for very, very small infractions. Slavery disrupted families, as 1 in 3 marriages were split up. 33% of marriages were split up, and 1 in 5 children were separated from their parents. And you think about folks loving their MAGA folks who put babies in cages, who split up families. That rings a bell. So don't get on Whoopi Goldberg as the right wingers have been doing when she says, no question, they want slavery again. Don't get on Jennifer Lewis when she says that too. They're showing you that. They split up families, they broke up homes. And the thing about it, let's be real, when they didn't separate the husband and wife, the slave master abused the wife in front of the husband. There was nothing he could do. You talk about emasculating someone. It doesn't get any worse than that. The case for reparations can be made on economic, social, and moral grounds. The U.S. has had multiple opportunities to atone for slavery. They didn't you remember, I think it was Bill Clinton in the 1990s who finally issued a formal apology. He refused to even apologize. And and then see, this is where folks go wrong when they say, well, slavery was so long ago, or what. The effects of the transatlantic slave trade continue to reverberate. Yes, there have been advancements. Some have made advancements. There are black billionaires. There are black millionaires. Yes. But for every black millionaire, there's dozens of white billionaires. And it's think about black, and I'm talking about black Americans. How many black American billionaires are there? You don't think black folks want to be billionaires? Well, that's what they will have you believe. Oh, y'all don't want that. Or y'all rather not work for it or go about it another way. This is what they tell you, and it's all not true. You've set up a system in which you've had to have been extremely fortunate, perhaps sold out big time. And I'm not saying that all who've made it have sold out. Not saying that at all. But for some, they've had to have sold out in a big way, whether sold out other black folks or sold themselves, their own souls. We see that every single day. I mean, look at the stuff that's being alleged all the time in Hollywood. And yeah, as Greer points out, I mentioned Clinton's apology, but still oppose reparations. What is it about reparations for black folks that even your most quote unquote well intentioned white person in power fears? Why wasn't that fear there for Holocaust survivors? Why wasn't that fear there for Japanese Americans of World War II? Why wasn't that fear there for Native Americans? I mean, not only was not that fear there, but everything that they have done, America has done, despite despite the progress of the civil rights movement, which didn't come until much later, right? David Youngblood said it's that black skin. And I think a lot of it, let's be real, a lot of it has to do with two things. For white men, they have this highly unusual fear of the black man taking his woman. And for white women, theirs is twofold. They have a lust for black men and at the same time have a fear of the superiority of a black man over their white husbands and sons. Fear of a black planet. And they say keep it real. And this is not to say all. It's not to say all of them, but I'm saying those in power for the most part. This is the fear that they operate on. Because remember this, that sexual assault that took place constantly, regularly, routinely during the during slavery, um, they have a desire for control. They have a desire, what they believe, and it's nothing unnatural about a desire to be with someone of a different race. There's nothing unnatural about that. I mean, nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with interracial marriages. But in their sick minds, their evil minds, certainly back then, there was a whole lot wrong with it. But so they couldn't suppress what was real. They couldn't suppress those desires. That so the hate becomes so much more palpable, and that's why they transfer it to their kids, and they make sure that their kids transfer it to their kids, and so on and so forth. You put Michelle Madison said, "When I attended Morgan State, I had a communications professor who told us that racism was because of a fear of the black man's penis." Yeah, I think that's a part of it for sure. That's what I'm saying. It's a part of it. But as Power 96 said, those same white men end up with black grandchildren. Absolutely. And black children. You can't argue with yourself on that because it's just the truth. And it comes from this ingrained racism, this ingrained hate. Now, normal black and white folks, they just see life as it is. They see people as they are. But this idea of reparations being s- such a hateful topic that they have to pass laws, craft and pass laws that say you can no longer even put together a commission to even study it. In which most black folks they'll tell you in a minute, they're tired of this idea. Let's get a study together. Let's get a commission together to study. It's ridiculous. Nicole says, reminds us of Dr. Francis Welsing's theory in the ISIS papers. The idea of this not even undertaking, considering a commission I mean, HR 48 has been a bill in the US Congress for 40 years, and it sat in the US Congress for 40 years. And you can't even get them to agree, "Okay, at least study it." I mean, they won't even throw even that bone, just a bone to say, "Okay, go ahead, study it." Because at the end of the day, they know they're not getting past just that, a study. Look what again, I referenced California. It made the big to-do. We're gonna go by what the commission states. We have decided we're gonna go by, so we're gonna put this commission together. They're gonna take a year or so to study it and decide who gets what should be given. And they came back. They came back with it. And then California, oh, we can't afford that. We're broke. It's the same old song. Now you have small pockets, right? Evanston, Illinois, uh, even there in Boston, Massachusetts. You have small pockets in which you've gotten some forms of reparations. Albeit, I mean, it does it match up to what is oh, of course not. It will never. If you consider interest, it will never match up. And David Youngblood says, yes, we already know all the study conclusions. Pay black people for the free labor. And it's not just that. David, as you know, it's everything we listed. The inequities in education. Look at what they're doing. Even now. This whole and that's why when black folks talking about, oh yeah, they're right about DE and I. Are you kidding me? They're right about affirmative action. Are you kidding me? And these are the ones who will benefit. Black folks who say that, these these Uncle Toms who say that have benefited from those same programs. More than 128,000 Holocaust survivors will receive a one-time payment under the hardship fund, which has been negotiated for 2024 through 2027. The hardship fund, according to Power 96. So you're still repairing, and it's beyond repairing them now, right? It's just, hey, you're the chosen ones. It's beyond that. It's beyond repairing. But the deaths, 50, we said 15% of those coming over on ships died on the way. How much is a life worth? And the lost income, the lost family, the separations of family. You know, when folks when there's an unjust death and there's a wrongful death lawsuit is what I'm saying. Folks have gotten tens of millions of dollars in jury awards and judgments. Well, heck, we just talked about O.J. Simpson. And in the civil suit, the jury placed a $33 million value on the life or the lives of Ronald Goldman and Nicole Brown Simpson. And I see where OJ's executor now says he'll work with the Goldman family and see what they can do. But 33 million. That was in 1997, and that was considering supposedly considering age and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But regardless, the point is 15% of those that they brought over died on the way over. So those lives, but you effectively killed those you enslaved because most of them, I'm sure not all, because we don't have to go into that, but most of them would have rather been killed than to spend their life on their knees in slavery. You took their lives, and that is the bottom line. And yet, after you've destroyed a whole race of people, you could it's a form of genocide. After you've done that, Lincoln freed the slaves because they didn't want the South to win the Civil War. There was no, oh, Lincoln's a good-hearted man. There was none of that. Heck, Lincoln had black babies running around too. You know that. But it was simply about the war. Then afterwards, like I said, what happened to the 40 acres and the mule and Reconstruction and from Reconstruction to Jim Crow to turn the water hose on civil rights marchers and sicken the dogs on them and Bloody Sunday to Black Lives Matter and D. Ray McKeeson now being sued for something he didn't do. And the Supreme Court said, no, let that stand. The cop can sue him because somebody hit the cop in the head with a rock during the protest, and he's the leader of the protest, so he's responsible. Since when? Jasmine Crockett, Greer says, recently proposed that blacks should not pay taxes in place of reparations since they're saying they're broke. How about that? How about that? There's an easy fix. There's an easy fix. And it's high. Listen, see, property tax, high as property taxes are in most places, it's an easy fix. And of course, as Dr. Nicole says, the crack epidemic of the 80s and three strikes in the 90s, all of that was designed. We all know the whole disparities with the powder cocaine, crack cocaine, and who put the crack cocaine in the black communities. And right, Power 96, Lincoln said if he could win the war and keep slavery, he would. But Dr. Nicole is 100% right. Then there's three strike laws. People were going to prison for 25 years for stealing a piece of pizza. 25 years because it was their third strike. That is why we have the black press. And it's amazing because you know what? With all of this stuff that's going on, this is why it's so important. We always talk about supporting the black press, but the black press ourselves have to support ourselves. We have to stop the nonsense. 197 years. Black press. You've heard me say this before. I won't go into any prolonged rant about it, but was founded before the end of slavery. And so we got to do things, we have to continue to do things different. We have to talk about things like this and the way we talk about it. But more importantly, and just as importantly, I should say, we got to survive. Because in 3 more years, we'll be celebrating a historic milestone 200 years of the Black press. And we want y'all to be involved. So start now by subscribing to our YouTube page, the Let It Be Known YouTube page, and tell your family and friends. Don't hide your wife or don't hide your kids from us. Bring them all out. And we're going to be doing some great celebration. In fact, the National Newspaper Publishers Association, the NNPA, which represents the Black Press of America, the trade association of the Black Press of America, we have another great convention planned in Baltimore at the Four Seasons Hotel, the week of June the 19th. With big awards gala, and um, now we're gonna call out President Biden and Vice President Harris. We calling them out because we are uh, we are expecting both their participation, and um, the president. They made a big deal. In fact, I got a call from the White House the other day. I was in Arizona though. Are you coming to the speech that the president's about to give for the National Action Network's convention? No, I want to come to the speech that he gives for the National Newspaper Publishers Association's convention, the Black Press. So we inviting everybody to sign up, come down to Baltimore. If you and check this out, folks. I love my 5-star hotels. I love like the Ritz. I love the Waldorf. I love the Four Seasons. It's going to be at the Four Seasons, and you would not believe. That, I'm gonna say this. They gave us like Holiday Inn rates. If you go on to NMPA.org or the event site, you too can come out to Baltimore in June and stay at the Ritz, the beautiful, the fancy Ritz Carlton. I mean, not Ritz, Four Seasons, and join us for a very, very, very reasonable price to stay at the Four Seasons. Usually, the Four Seasons is about that particular Four Seasons on an average day. It's about $900 a night. Mostly, it's more than that. But this, you got to check it out. I'm not going to tell you how much it is. You wouldn't believe it if I told you. So go on and find out yourself. Use the um, uh, NNPA events, whatever code they give you. And Mr. Durrett says, so we can live like you just for a couple of days. That we gonna get there. Me and Greer will be there that Tuesday. Or I don't know, Greer might be there Monday. Who knows? She's probably got the presidential suite or something like that. So, but nonetheless, Tuesday to Sunday, everything's happening throughout the week. So come join us. Check us out. And like I said, the president and the vice president, I'm going down by saying they owe us a visit. And we are anticipating not being disappointed by, especially in 2024, and only months away from what could be the last election in American history, last presidential election. So they want they want the black folks behind them. They want the power of the black press. Well, join us in Baltimore, and we invite all y'all to come out. It's open to the public. So come on out, show your support for the black press as we march toward 200 years in Baltimore. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you again tomorrow. I'm gonna drink my coffee while we go off the air. Guess she doesn't want us to end the show. What is going on here? You mean y'all want